Tracy did not hesitate when she learned Drew had been rushed to the hospital, injured badly enough to be kept under Willow's watchful care. The moment felt too perfectly aligned with unfinished business, and Tracy Quartermaine had never been a woman to ignore an opening like that. While the halls of General Hospital buzzed with whispered concern and forced optimism, Tracy was already thinking several steps ahead, her mind fixed on Drew's empty house and the Quartermaine heirlooms that still sat inside it, waiting to be reclaimed. Drew's injury was serious enough to keep him away for days, maybe longer, and Willow's constant presence at his bedside only reinforced Tracy's certainty that the house would be unguarded. To Tracy, this was not simply about silver frames or antique watches passed down through generations. It was about restoring what belonged to the Quartermaine legacy and correcting yet another injustice that Drew had allowed to stand. She told herself that was the reason she drove toward his place with such purpose. Her jaw set, her thoughts sharp and focused. She did not yet know that this quiet mission would unravel something far darker than misplaced heirlooms. The house felt strangely hollow when Tracy slipped inside. Without Drew's voice or Willow's gentle movements, the rooms carried a cold stillness that unsettled even someone as unflappable as Tracy. She moved methodically, opening drawers and cabinets, her eyes trained to recognize the familiar gleam of Quartermaine history. Every step deeper into the house sharpened her sense that she was trespassing not just in space, but in secrets. It was in Drew's study that Tracy noticed something out of place. A small notebook lay half-hidden beneath a stack of papers on the desk, its worn cover and bent corners suggesting it had been handled often and carelessly. Tracy paused. Willow was not known for keeping journals. She had always presented herself as earnest and transparent, a woman who spoke from the heart and had nothing to hide. And yet this notebook looked personal, intimate, not something Drew would have kept for himself. Tracy picked it up, curiosity flickering into something more alert and wary. She told herself she would only glance, only confirm whether it was worth her attention. But once she opened the first page, she understood immediately that this was no ordinary notebook. Willow's handwriting filled the pages, neat at first, then increasingly erratic as the entries progressed. Tracy felt a chill creep up her spine as she read words that did not belong to the gentle nurse everyone believed they knew. Willow had written about the trial that stripped her of custody, about the humiliation and fury that followed. She wrote about feeling betrayed by the system, by Michael, by Drew. The entries were not simply emotional venting. They were calculated, precise, and disturbingly methodical. As Tracy read on, the truth revealed itself piece by piece. Willow had documented the first attack on Drew in unsettling detail. She wrote about timing, about making it look accidental, about the satisfaction she felt watching him suffer without realizing who was responsible. Tracy's grip tightened on the notebook as she turned the pages. There was no ambiguity here, no room for misinterpretation. Willow had not only attacked Drew once, but twice, refining her approach, learning from her mistakes. The second attack was described with chilling calm. Willow wrote about anticipating Drew's reactions, about exploiting his trust, about ensuring he would never suspect her. Tracy felt a surge of anger and something close to grim admiration. The precision was horrifying, but it was also undeniable. Willow had planned everything. Then came the passages that made Tracy's breath catch. Willow wrote about what came next. Drew was only one piece of a larger design. Michael was her true obstacle, the one standing between her and her children. Willow outlined scenarios, potential traps, ways to push Michael into a corner where he would have no choice but to make a fatal mistake. Prison was mentioned more than once, not as a fear, but as a goal. If Michael was behind bars, Willow reasoned, custody would inevitably return to her. Tracy closed the notebook slowly, her mind racing. This was not the misguided anger of a wronged mother. This was a pattern of escalating violence and manipulation. Willow had crossed a line long ago, and she was preparing to cross another, one that could destroy multiple lives in the process. For a brief moment, Tracy considered the irony of it all. Drew, for all his moral posturing, was no innocent. He had manipulated, lied, and hurt people in the name of what he believed was right. In another world, Tracy might have shrugged and said he deserved a taste of his own medicine. But this was different. Willow was not acting out of justice or desperation anymore. She was acting out of obsession and entitlement, and that made her far more dangerous. Tracy knew exactly what she had to do. Turning this diary over to the police would stop Willow's plans cold. It would expose her crimes, protect Michael, and prevent whatever tragedy Willow was planning next. But as Tracy stood there in Drew's study, the weight of the decision settled heavily on her shoulders. Once this was done, there would be no turning back. Willow's carefully constructed image would shatter, and the fallout would ripple through everyone connected to her. She tucked the notebook into her bag, making sure it was secure. The heirloom she had come for suddenly felt insignificant compared to what she now carried. As Tracy left the house, she could not shake the sense that she had just stepped into the center of a storm that was about to break. Back at the hospital, Willow sat by Drew's bed, her expression soft and concerned, her hand gently adjusting his blanket. No one watching her would ever suspect the thoughts running through her mind or the words she had committed to paper. She believed her secrets were safe, hidden away where no one would think to look. The exhaustion she felt was real, but it was not just physical. Maintaining the mask, the endless performance of compassion and remorse, was wearing her down. When Drew stirred and opened his eyes, Willow leaned in, offering a reassuring smile. She spoke softly, telling him he was safe, that she was there. Inside, however, her thoughts drifted to unfinished plans and contingencies she still needed to consider. She did not know that Tracy had already found the roadmap to her undoing. As Tracy watched from a distance, unseen, she felt a cold resolve harden within her. She saw Willow's tenderness, her apparent devotion, and now understood it as part of the same manipulation laid bare in the diary. Tracy had spent her life navigating deception and power plays, and she recognized a predator when she saw one. The question was no longer whether Willow would pay for her crimes, but how and when. Tracy intended to make sure it happened, not out of mercy for Drew, but to stop Willow from destroying anyone else. The diary was proof, and proof was power. And Tracy Quartermaine knew exactly how to wield it, even as the pieces on the board continued to move and the danger crept ever closer. Tracy did not act immediately, and that restraint was what made her dangerous. She understood that raw truth, when released too quickly, could be twisted, doubted, or buried. The diary in her possession was more than evidence. It was a map of Willow's mind, and Tracy intended to follow every path it revealed before she made her move. She spent that night awake, reading the pages again and again, absorbing not only what Willow had done but how she thought, how she justified each step, how she planned her future with chilling confidence. By morning, Tracy knew that simply handing the diary to the police would not be enough. Willow was careful, intelligent, and deeply embedded in the lives of powerful people. If there was even a sliver of doubt, Willow would exploit it. Tracy needed corroboration. She needed timing. And most of all, she needed Willow to feel safe right up until the moment everything collapsed. At the hospital, Willow continued her quiet vigil by Drew's side. Nurses praised her devotion. Doctors nodded approvingly at her attentiveness, and visitors saw only a woman exhausted by worry and love. Willow played the role flawlessly. Inside, however, Tension gnawed at her. The diary lingered in her thoughts like an itch she could not scratch. She could not remember the last time she had seen it. She told herself it was safe, that she had left it tucked away where no one would look. Still, a faint unease followed her through every hallway. Drew's recovery was slow, and in his weakness he leaned on Willow more than ever. He confided his fears, his regrets, his growing suspicion that someone had wanted him hurt. Each time he spoke, Willow listened with careful empathy, offering comfort while mentally recalculating her position. She reassured him that accidents happened, that enemies were everywhere in Port Charles. That paranoia would only slow his healing. Drew believed her, because he wanted to. Trust was easier than doubt. Meanwhile, Tracy began quietly pulling threads. She spoke with a doctor she trusted, asking pointed questions about Drew's injuries and the inconsistencies surrounding both attacks. She contacted a private investigator under the guise of reclaiming stolen Quartermaine property, steering the conversation toward Willow without ever saying her name aloud. Every step Tracy took was subtle, almost invisible, but together they formed a tightening net. Michael was the wild card. Tracy knew he was both Willow's obsession and her potential downfall. She arranged a meeting with him under the pretense of family business, choosing her words carefully as she tested his awareness. Michael spoke of Willow with lingering affection mixed with confusion and frustration. He admitted he felt watched, manipulated, as though every move he made somehow benefited her. Tracy listened closely, filing away every detail. When Tracy finally showed Michael the diary, she did not give it to him outright. She let him read select passages, enough to recognize Willow's handwriting, enough to understand the depth of betrayal. Michael's reaction was raw and visceral. Anger flared, followed by disbelief, then a hollow kind of grief. The woman he once loved, the mother of his children, was a stranger revealed in ink and calculation. Michael wanted to confront Willow immediately. Tracy stopped him. She explained that emotional outbursts would only drive Willow underground. What they needed was undeniable proof presented in a way Willow could not escape. Reluctantly, Michael agreed to wait, though every moment tested his restraint. The opportunity came sooner than Tracy expected. Willow made a mistake, a small one, born of fatigue and overconfidence. She began setting the stage for her next move against Michael, contacting someone with a criminal record, offering subtle incentives, laying groundwork that mirrored the diary's plans too closely. Tracy's investigator caught the exchange, and suddenly the story on the page had a living echo in the real world. With that final piece in place, Tracy contacted the police. This time, she did not simply present a diary. She presented a pattern. 2 attacks on Drew supported by medical inconsistencies. Written confessions and future plans in Willow's own hand. Witness accounts and surveillance confirming ongoing manipulation. The authorities listened, and this time they did not look away. The arrest happened at the hospital. Willow was standing at Drew's bedside when officers entered the room. At first she thought it was a mistake, some unrelated emergency spilling into her space. When they spoke her name and read her rights, confusion flickered across her face, quickly replaced by shock and then fury. She looked to Drew for help, for denial, for anything. Drew could not meet her eyes. As they escorted her out, Willow's composure cracked. She demanded explanations, accused Tracy of sabotage, insisted she was being framed. But when the diary was placed on the table during questioning, her voice faltered. She recognized it instantly. The words she had trusted to paper now stared back at her, stripped of context, stripped of justification. The trial that followed consumed Port Charles. Every page of the diary was examined, every motive dissected. Willow's defense tried to paint her as a desperate mother driven too far. But the careful planning, the repeated violence, and the cold ambition laid bare in her own writing told a different story. Drew testified, his voice steady but heavy with regret. Michael testified too, speaking not from anger but from loss. In the end, the verdict was swift. Willow was held accountable for her crimes, her future reshaped by the very control she once sought to impose on others. Custody decisions followed, this time guided by safety rather than sympathy. Tracy watched it all with a complicated sense of closure. She did not celebrate. She knew that justice rarely felt clean. Drew survived, changed and chastened. Michael began the slow work of rebuilding trust and stability for his children. And Port Charles absorbed another cautionary tale, whispered in corridors and remembered in silence. The diary was sealed into evidence, its pages no longer a weapon but a warning. Tracy returned the Quartermaine heirlooms to their rightful place, the mission that had started it all now complete in a way she could never have predicted. As she settled back into her life, she knew one truth above all others. Secrets always leave traces. And sooner or later, someone brave enough will follow them to the end.